Today, all good, modern, civilized men living in the Western world are all taught to be good global citizens whose racial, cultural, and religious loyalties must always be subordinate to a broader and more inclusive commitment to the human race. To say that you care about one group of people more than all the others is a moral sin in the modern world. It is considered uncivilized, barbaric. And yet, to become the kind of man who can join or start a tribe, that is exactly what you have to be willing to do. You have to be willing to become an outsider, a barbarian, to the rest of the world. What's going on, YouTube? Michael R. Schulteis here, author of The Rostaval Saga, which you can see, as always, on the shelf behind me. Today I'm coming at you with my review of Becoming a Barbarian, which is book 2 in Jack Donovan's magnificent trilogy of practical philosophy books that starts with The Way of Men, which I reviewed very recently, and A More Complete Beast review forthcoming. So, let's jump right in. So what's this book about? So if you read The Way of Men, or if you've watched my review, you will understand the key lesson of that book is that our nature as men is that we need a tribe. We need a gang. We need a small group of people around us to serve as our honor group. We need an us to be a part of. And a key point, it's essentially the point of that book, is that this is a deeply ingrained need that we have evolved with, that it's been with us for our whole history. Think about how we lived even not so long ago. Think about men living and working together in factories, fighting in wars together, whatever it is. Think about how until very recently, a lot of people, even in the fairly modern West, had an us to be a part of, had a community, a tribe, as it were, a gang, so to speak. And this is the launch point for Jack Donovan's argument in this incredible book. So in essence, what Donovan's saying is, you want to understand what's gone wrong with the modern world, with regard to men specifically. Masculinity. Well, we evolved to be tribal, but we live under a paradigm, an overarching set of ideas and structures and institutions, all of it, that demand and that are run on and that indoctrinate you with moral universalism. So that's pretty big thing to hit you with. Let's unpack this a little bit more. What Donovan is getting at here, the reason all of this matters, is this tragic aspect of masculinity. Our fate as men is to strive against the environment, against obstacles in our lives, historically speaking, against wild animals, against other men, to get what we want, what we need, to sustain ourselves, to make ourselves more excellent, to protect our tribe. This hasn't gone away just because we live in big cities with delivery pizza and Uber and Netflix and elections and things of this nature. This book is full of amazing quotes, just like The Way of Men. I'm going to read one here. Donovan says, masculinity is tragic. Tragic. Masculinity is a lifelong struggle, a gauntlet run against nature and other men to demonstrate virility and prove one's worthiness as a man in the eyes of other men. Masculinity is a challenge to honor that ends only in death, a challenge to win coupled with a guarantee that eventually even the best men will lose. This applies to all of us in the sense that it means all men. Whatever your tribe, whatever your ethnicity, your culture, your racial background, it applies to all of us. It's a universal, it unites us, but here's the catch. Universalism corrodes this ethos. It makes it impossible for us to properly be men because we need an us to be a part of, an us to fight for, an us to evaluate us and tell us if we're honorable or not. So universalism destroys masculinity, and that's the key insight that animates this book. If you want to realize your masculine nature, you need to let go of this idea that you are somehow accountable to or responsible for saving the world. I'm going to repeat that. You need to let go of the idea that you need to save the world, because you don't. And trying to do it will only destroy you. More about that in a little bit. So Donovan writes, and this is another great quote. This book is just full of them. I do way more quotes with my Jack Donovan reviews than I do with anything else, because it's so much incredible practical philosophy right here. Donovan writes, without separation, there can be no conflict, and without conflict, there can be no vital masculinity. To say that you love every man as your brother is not only a lie, but a resignation to impotence and a forfeiture of manhood. It has been said that many enemies bring much honor, and it is also true that without enemies there can be no honor. Without outsiders there can be no insiders. Without them there can be no us. Without us there can be no honor group, and therefore no honor. So this is a book about identity. But he's not here to tell you which identity you need to choose, this is the right one for you. No, you do have to figure that out. This is practical philosophy. He'll tell you what's wrong. He'll point you toward a solution. Go create an honor group. But he's not here to tell you, well, you need to have mine. You need to have my identity. Or, I know the right one for you, it's blah. The right one for you is whatever honor group you can create. So I said, the identity that you choose, that you find, it's your honor group. It's with other people. Let's talk about what it's not. What is your identity not? What is a bad basis for identity? Well, it's everything the modern West, the modern global civilization. Can you call it the West anymore? I don't know. It's not the movies that you watch or the comics you read or the other men's sports ball jerseys that you wear. The fandoms you participate in. Oh, Star Wars, Star Trek. None of that stuff matters. At all. Like, not at all. These are shallow, consumerist identities that have no roots and no deeper meaning. Identity gives us something more than bumper stickers, fandoms, collectible plastic figurines, Funko Pops. Identity is about something grounded and organic and real. And you can't find it in modern consumerist society. You have to look inward and outward, and you have to find it with other people. So what's wrong with the West today, and the thing we have to understand to reorient ourselves, to perform the moral gear shift away from thinking of ourselves as part of this shapeless and undifferentiated us, everybody, to us, it's a specific group. We have to understand that moral universalism is the mentality, the mindset that we have to overcome here. So if what we need to be fulfilled is to have an us, opposed to the rest of the world, perimeter defines who we are, then the problem is the mass culture, the mass corporations, and the mass governments. Donovan talks about the empire of nothing. He says it's not like the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, you knew you were ruled by the Romans. There's a Roman culture. There's a Roman religion, Roman government. It's all stamped Roman. There's a Roman language, Latin. People who make movies in Hollywood, it's not Los Angeles culture that they're exporting. It's global culture. It's culture that has no particular identity as such. It's not built that way. It's just global product. Same with everything else. So we contrast the Roman Empire with the empire of nothing. The Romans, you're ruled by the Romans. Maybe you become Roman over time. What we have today is not that kind of a deal. It's global culture. It's homogenized culture. There's no real cultural identity. No us to be a part of there. And unfortunately, this gets us into mindsets of extreme moral universalism that are very unhealthy, very bad for us. We have to free ourselves from the empire of nothing. And to get there, you have to see how ridiculous the whole thing is. Once you see that, once the scales fall from your eyes, it's really hard to go back. So Donovan writes, good modern civilized men are burdened with the expectation that they must somehow become the guardians of all and none. 7.2 billion, it's over 8 billion now, struggling souls. And we're supposed to care about the fate of all of them. But none of them too much. To any man's mind, even 1 billion people might as well be an infinite number of people. The human mind cannot meaningfully conceptualize that many upright monkeys. It's just a number. Donovan writes, moral universalism is a philosophy for men who have surrendered. They have surrendered their land, their history, their woman, their dignity, and their identity. They become impotent half-men who deserve to be victims and slaves. Now, doesn't that ring home? If you've been paying attention these past few years, and maybe even longer. So once you get this, what do? Well, you moral gear shift. You stop trying to care about the empire of nothing and its global imperatives and all of the causes that it tells you to care about today and next week and next month and all of the moral hazards that those causes represent and all the ways that this is going to involve fundamentally you being a sucker who has to fund the whole thing or has to morally carry water for the whole thing. Why bear a burden that's saddled on you by someone who is trying to use you, trying to manipulate you for this fundamentally very perverse and very wrong moral universalist ideology, moral universalist system that we find ourselves in? You can't practically disengage. It'd be very hard. You go live in Siberia somewhere. Well, that's difficult. Why compromise your quality of life? Why not take all the benefits that you can from the empire of nothing and live your life tribally? Live your life in a way that you're trying to create good, positive, life-affirming, unfair advantages for you and for your people, like your family, maybe your friends, your neighbors, people you can meaningfully help, meaningfully create an us with. There's so much good practical wisdom here. I can't cover it all. I'm going to skip ahead to one of the more fascinating ideas that Donovan puts forward, and that is the Mother of Exiles, and really understand the core problem, what this moral universalism does. It's difficult to get out of your brain if you've had a lifetime of it being pumped in there, but the core problem is that without an us, and without a them, we can't have proper standards. We can't have nice things. We can't have nobility and dignity. We can't have a functional society, ultimately, is my belief. But time will tell. So when you have this system that is essentially built on global consumption, global capitalistic enterprises that need to keep the wheels of commerce all greased, what comes with that is this mawkish, mollycoddling, nanny state morality. And that is the Mother of Exiles. And unfortunately, the roots for this one go back a little ways. It's not a recent thing. It's not in the time scale of our lives. Unfortunately, the seeds were planted quite a while ago in the history of, speaking from my own context, of America. So the reality is that the baby boomer generation did make a lot of this lack of judgment, lack of standards a lot worse. But it does go back farther. Donovan points to the poem The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus that is on the Statue of Liberty. And he excerpts, he reproduces the poem in full. I'm just going to go ahead and read it real quick. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Well, that's not actually something to live by. That's not actually a creed that can sustain an us, a tribe, a group of people. That is universal death. Donovan's diagnosis of what's wrong here is so brilliant that I'm just going to another amazing quote in this amazing book. Quote, the pathological altruism of the matriarchal thinker who wants to take in and nurture everyone from everywhere has come into harmony with the commercial perspective that everyone's money is good. The Mother of Exiles is wedded to Mammon. Together they stand against ancient identities and history as they welcome the refuse of the world into the global marketplace. So this is the spiritual rot. This is the spiritual rot at the heart of the modern condition. This obsession with we've got to accept everybody. If you stand for everybody and you accept everybody, then you stand for nobody and you'll fall for anything. Donovan writes, the Mother of Exiles will welcome you into Mammon's empire of nothing. She will embrace you and accept you, whoever you are. She will tell you that you are special. She will comfort and affirm you. She will assure you that your weaknesses are strengths. She wants to hear your story, no matter how dull or sad, and agrees that you've been victimized and treated unfairly. She values quote-unquote equality above all things. And if you are handicapped in spirit or aptitude, she will handicap the capable, Harrison Bergeron style, to make life feel quote-unquote more fair. Held tight to her bosom, you will never feel unsafe or uncomfortable for long, because if you do, she'll motion to Father Mammon's Imperial Guard to intimidate or whisk away the bad men. Once you start to see this with Donovan's eyes, you start to see clearly that the problem of this age is a spiritual problem. And I don't mean, fire and brimstone. I don't mean any of the, I don't mean new age woo-woo either. I mean, there's no moral basis for it. It's corruption and rot, presided over by grifters and psychopaths, and some genuinely duped people, I'm sure. I could quote this book all day, but the most valuable thing is getting you away from this false morality that binds us to nothing and denies us the ability to be anything. And once you get that, your mentality can change forever, and so much for the better. There's this amazing quote from The Expanse, the science fiction series that I want to read here that speaks beautifully to what Donovan's talking about here. And the individual who's talking is a member of the Martian Congressional Republic Navy. He's talking to James Holden, an Earther, someone from Earth. He says, "We are nothing like you. The only thing Earthers care about is government handouts. Free food, free water, free drugs to forget the meaningless lives you all lead. You're short-sighted, selfish, and it will destroy you. I only hope we can bring Mars to life before you destroy that too." Ultimately, this is actually a very positive book. It may not sound like it. When you get through the diagnosis of the extreme spiritual rot, it's very positive to say, hey, cut the gangrene out of your mind, out of your soul, out of your spirit, so that the healthy, life-promoting tissue can grow again. That's the most positive thing in the world. And I would say, what to do about this? You read this book, what do you do? Well, how about lift some weights, hike a mountain, write a novel, paint a painting, build a friend group. The real takeaway here is, your loyalty, your love, your belonging shouldn't be out there. It should be people you can actually impact. And that is a very powerful thing. And it can change your life for the better. So, what to rate this? Well, 5 out of 5. You had to see that coming. This is an incredible book. And I will say what I've said about The Way of Men. If you are a man today in the modern West, this book should be one of your Bibles. Your Bible, or one of your holy scriptures, because it really is that good. It is that powerful, and it is very timely. This would have been so common sense that no one would have had to say this even 100 years ago. But we've become so disconnected from everything life promoting in our own nature, our own deep human nature that yearns for honor, for meaningful struggle, responsibility, that this book is not only vitally necessary, but has the character almost of an apocalypsis, a divine revelation. So let's do my usual thing. Who is this book for? Modern men who are fed up, who are discouraged, who are tired of the whole modern system we find ourselves in. If you are not happy with modernity, this book is for you. It'll help you. It'll put you in a good, positive path. This book will help you to reject bad loyalties, mindsets that are holding you back and weighing you down. And it will point you towards creating a context or finding a context in which your actions will actually matter. I see young men today who don't have this. And I've tried to do what I can to create some of it. I fear that my best efforts are very humble. There's no, we're not the Norse. We're not the Danes raiding Britannia or the English fighting the Danes. We're not the settlers carving civilization out of the wilderness. But, maybe read this book and go out and make a friend. Do a meetup. My wife and I do that. This book is a really important book, and I think it stands to benefit a lot of very lost men and a lot of lost boys who need to become men. Who was this book not for? Well, it's like with my review of The Way of Men, the peanut gallery. If you are wedded to a bumper sticker mentality, rah-rah, coexist equality, this book is not for you. Give it a pass. It's probably pretty obvious, but let's just say it anyway. If you are content being a patron or a client or a tax mule of the empire of nothing, and you don't want to change, this book's not for you. And I'm going to close by saying, by the way, if you do like what I'm putting down here, if you do like this whole mentality, check out the Rostoval Saga. It's got barbarian warriors, it's got sultry slave girls, it's got battles and quests and arrogant gods and adventure in forbidding wilderness. So I think if you like the barbarian mindset, you want to become a barbarian, maybe read a little barbarian fiction. I'm only saying. So I'm going to close with a quote from Jack Donovan. By the way, get the audiobook. Get the audiobook, listen to it. Get the ebook too, but get the audiobook because Jack Donovan, best narrator you could possibly ask for. Quote, all of our life stories are a collection of highs and lows, of victories and defeats, of struggles and of overcoming. Without conflict, no life story is worth telling. Without conflict and struggle, the answer to the question, what happened, is nothing. Like Odin and Thor, we know we will die, but unless we fight, we are already as good as dead. So how about you? Have you read The Way of Men and Becoming a Barbarian by Jack Donovan? Do you want to read these books and A More Complete Beast, the third book in the trilogy? Let me know. And hey, like and subscribe. It really helps to grow the channel. I'll hope to catch you on the next video.